We do have our next author coming up, Michelle Medina. And let me just tell you just a little quick thing about Michelle. She was on my show a few months ago, I guess, and talking about her book and when it's time to let go. And when she was on, and I shared this with her today, she really moved me. Her story really, really moved me. And you have preconceived notions about domestic violence and what goes on in a domestic violence relationship. And a lot of times you say to yourself, well, or you think about the individual and say, why don't you just get out of that situation? And she really kind of gave me an education into what her journey was and how it affected her and how she was able to triumph and get through it. I'm telling you, I was almost crying, I don't know if she knew this, when I was interviewing her, because her story is just that compelling, and she is really an inspiration, and I'm thankful for her, and I'm thankful that she told the story. So I would like to introduce Michelle Medina.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Medina, and I am a survivor of domestic violence. According to national statistics, there's an average of 20 people per minute that are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. During 1 year, that equates to over 10 million men and women. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have been victims of severe physical violence by an intimate partner. Only 34% receive medical care for their injuries. That's 34%. On a typical day, there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide. As a child, I grew up and I never imagined that I would become a bad wife, raising a son on my own as a single parent. But I live to tell my story. Unfortunately, some victims do not survive, are in denial, or too battered to speak up, so they suffer in silence. As a victim, I was too embarrassed, and I hid my abuse from my family and friends. I did not want to face the fact that I had been abused. I often wondered, how could something like that happen to someone like me? I was on honor roll in high school, Dean's List in college. I was in the Air Force, Airman First Class, in the military. I'm a licensed cosmetologist, certified esthetician, and a recent graduate with a bachelor's degree with business management and economics with a concentration in marketing. So that shows that abuse does not discriminate. Doesn't matter what gender, what race, or social class you are. It can happen in poor neighborhoods. It can happen to doctors and lawyers. Based on my experience, I wrote my book called When It's Time to Let Go, Taking Control of Abuse. And my objective is to empower victims to learn to let go of abusive relationships and to control their own destiny. That day that changed my life was when I met a man. He was charming, he was charismatic, handsome, and generous. He made me feel like royalty. But he had a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality. And his generosity came with consequences. After he put a wedding band on my finger, he exposed his dark side and became abusive. The verbal abuse started off monthly to twice a month to weekly, then to almost daily. This is when it transformed into physical abuse. He was jealous, possessive, and controlling. And this was his dysfunctional definition he called love. People often wonder why victims don't leave. but my book describes my reasonings. I was harassed, threatened with physical harm, and I felt the guilt of having a failed relationship. So I was too embarrassed to get a divorce because I didn't want to face the judgment of what my family would say. He also threatened to take my son away and to gain custody. Other victims want a two-parent household. They may lack job skills, have economic dependency with their abusers, and maybe they don't have anywhere to go. And some of them want to push the abuse far back in their mind and just try to forget about it just to numb the pain. I learned to let go when my abuser put his hands around my throat, and that was enough. It's unfortunate that it takes extreme circumstances to occur before victims acknowledge abuse. Some victims don't survive, and some finally do something about it. So I'm here to say, parents, educate your sons, educate your daughters, to not let them become victims of abuse or become abusers themselves. Look for warning signs. Look for jealousy, possessiveness, control by intimidation, manipulation, threats of violence, verbal signs such as cursing, degrading, slapping, punching, spitting, kicking, pushing. Watch how an abuser may treat others. Look for explosive behaviors. Don't allow abusers to gaslight you. This is when they make you think you're crazy for putting up with their craziness, or making you feel that it's wrong for not agreeing to be treated wrongly, or blame you for their problems to deflect when they are at fault, or treat you like you're not a victim when you've been victimized. Unfortunately, even after leaving a relationship, the abuse does not end. There are psychological damage that it could cause after leaving. So my book describes the hurdles and the pitfalls that I faced. Some to explain, I became pregnant, I couldn't leave. His mother called me and said that she had a dream for me to stay. So unfortunately, that was a religious aspect as to why she told me to stay. But it wasn't until I had to call the police. There were 6 cop cars that showed up with their guns drawn. And that's when I had my abuser arrested. I left and I never turned back. I'm also here to say that any victims that are too ashamed, don't want to talk about it, that need help, please go to focus groups. That's what I did. That's what helped me. So whether you may have been victimized or know someone who has, please help break the cycle and end domestic abuse. Again, my name is Michelle Medina. Please visit me at michellemedina.com. That's www.mechellemedina.com. Thank you.